one right now, just so that we have it ready to put on our website. And I have already built a web page. It's on the blog right now, where these videos and the audio files will go. But I think I'd rather just have, there's only 15 people here, so we'll just hold on for a couple of minutes before we get started. But I do hope that if you have any questions, anybody, that you ask our questions so that members of our team can respond, or I can respond. There's no question that somebody shouldn't ask, but in between these webinars, we think it's very important for people to work through our various videos and courses and books and learn as much as you can, because going into this system is really traumatic. It's traumatizing, not only for the individual, but also for the family members. And so while we wait, actually I can get started, I guess, right now. There are people that I don't know. So I'm going to start by just saying thank you to everybody for trusting in our team to be there as a resource for you. I want to show you, I imagine that all of you already know the differences between our website and where those resources exist. I'm going to try and turn this over right here. Here's a website that we have. I have created this. We have this website with hopes that people will use it, particularly when they're coming into the system and they're trying to get to know things. Because one of the most challenging, I think, things that we hear are when people get to prison and they feel as if they were not prepared well. They didn't know anything. They don't know enough about the system. And when they get there, they get shocked and kind of surprised. So today's webinar is really what I would call one of the first ones that's part of our series, is helping people understand this system. But we're really flexible. So if anybody has a question about anything, about any aspect of the system, there's a couple of ways that people can do it. They can either wait until the end of the webinar and we'll just have an open dialogue. They could also go into this section here that is at the bottom, where there is a section under which part is it? I think it's under reactions, and people can raise their hand, or they can go on the chat button. Is it the reactions where they can raise their hand? Let me see. I don't know if anybody could see. Does anybody know where is it?
Yes, Michael. This is Mark. Under reactions, there's a button that says raise hand.
Right. So yeah, don't click on the arrow. Oh yeah. So if I click on the arrow, there's the raise hand. So please, if somebody wants to ask something, I will see it on there. So if you raise your hand, I'm happy to respond to anything. But if somebody also wants to leave a message in the chat, please feel free to type in the chat. I won't be able to read the chat while I'm delivering the webinar, but at the end of generally my process is I talk about the prepared remarks and what I'm trying to convey today, and then I read the chat at the end. Jason, I see your hand is up. Did you want to say something before I get started?
Yes, sir. I wanted to know how would I engage with Carol about my medical condition, and ask some questions about her. Ask some questions for her.
Yeah. Let me put this in the chat right there. This is Carol's email address, carol@earningfreedomcorp.com. And you could just write her directly. And does everybody see that Carol's email address in the chat box? Great. So you could just send her an email anytime you want. And if it's, and if it may not only be Carol, but Carol's the right person for any medical thing to send. But then we may also use some of our subject matter experts as well to assist somebody depending on what stage of the journey they're in. And always, the earlier somebody reaches out, the better off they are for us to try and help. I'm going to go to this section here where I'm sharing the screen again, so I can, and this is right on the blog. If anybody wants to follow along, this is just like a PowerPoint presentation that just kind of keep me on track of what I want to talk about today. And I know that people are at different stages of the journey. I was speaking with one of the ladies earlier at the first part of this webinar, and she was telling me that her husband just surrendered and he's inside of a detention center. He may have different concerns than somebody who just under indictment and is facing a decision on whether to plead guilty or go to trial, which is going to be different from somebody who may be getting ready for a pre-sentence investigation report, which may be different from somebody who's getting ready for sentencing, which may be different from somebody who's already been sentenced and going in. Everybody has their own concerns through this journey. And what differentiates us, I think, from a law firm or a lawyer is we're like you. Everybody in our community is like you. We've all gone through it, but we've gone through the entire process. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael. I'm Michael Santos. I founded this company because I went through 26 years in prison, and there was a lot I didn't know about the system when I started, and learned a lot from leaders and really wanted to help people understand primarily what you can do early to change the outcome of your sentence or your experience, but also to give confidence to your family and help you understand this may be a very weak time of your life right now, but the earlier you start preparing, the earlier you start getting ready for the journey ahead, the better off you're going to be. And I always like to say that I wish that we could have spoken with you before the government ever knew who you or started to target you for potential investigation or prosecution, because there's so much that we've learned from this experience of having gone through it that we could help people hopefully make better decisions so that they didn't come in. We think that we could provide valuable information that people can use if they're being charged or if they're under investigation, so they may be able to influence how they are charged, so they have a different experience, maybe a lower statutory maximum sentence, or the way they negotiate a plea agreement with their attorneys. If somebody's getting ready for the pre-sentence investigation, Sam is an expert at helping people understand what they can do. Scott is as well. And then getting ready for sentencing. All of these are different stages in what we call the mitigation arc of helping people understand there's always something that a person can be doing to advance prospects for a better outcome. What's sad is when people don't learn this until much later in the journey, because although there's always a response, it's always easier to start advocating for yourself if you start really early. And that's what we want to share with people. So if you, in between these webinars, what we always encourage people to do is use this asset that we create as a resource so that you are in a better position to understand what can you do. And if you just visit this website, it would take a long time to get through all of the information that we offer, because we publish new information, as you can see here, every day. Okay, there's always new content coming up here. And this content is related to hopefully helping people understand at various stages of their journey, whether it's before sentencing, after sentencing, whether they're learning to advocate for themselves, where they're looking for examples of people like here in reentry programs, of people that have gone through the system and what did they do to transform their life and emerge from this successfully. All of this is super important because there's always something that somebody can be doing. Sometimes we want to think that the hardest part is what you're going through at this stage in time. But this is a long tail process. I've been out of prison now for 9 years, and it's something that I live with every day. I've built my career around this experience because I'm deeply committed to trying to help all justice impacted people. But for people that I meet every day, I learn about challenges they're facing, such as getting fired by banking institutions, such as having trouble getting back into the job market. There are people here that can tell us about their experience dealing with supervised release, or there's potential problems. There's so much to learn that goes long beyond whatever challenge you're facing today. But the sooner you start sowing seeds for this better life, the better off you are going to be to influence things. And in today's environment, it's more important than ever, because today you have this concept of the First Step Act. And the First Step Act is a huge piece of prison reform legislation that it really incentivizes people to start working towards something better. So just as you were earlier in your career, you took steps. I'm sure that everybody here took steps to try and prepare for the success that they had before. This is the time to start taking steps to prepare for a better outcome. And if you're working with members of our team like Sam, I know you've taken a first step, but there's always more to learn. And the more you understand about this journey before you get into the system, and as well as the more efforts you make to try and help the people that are in your support system understand the journey, the better positioned you are going to be to overcome some of those challenges when you're in prison. I know that my friend Scott is on this webinar right now. And I remember in the very beginning when he got released from prison, when he was getting ready to get released from prison and he transitioned into a halfway house, he had a different experience than what he expected. I remember, Scott, maybe you could tell them a little bit about what it's like to transition from a minimum security camp. And well, why don't you tell them about all your entire experience, about what you did to prepare before you got in there, how you used your time inside to advocate for yourself better, and then coming home and how your mindset kind of changed at various stages of the journey.
Okay, I'd be happy to. I was looking at 0 to 6 months. That was my guideline range. Unfortunately, due to the way that I responded to the government, to my indictment, to the allegations against me, I was able to increase that to 51 to 57 months. So when we all say, what I learned through this is your response to the crimes you committed or the allegations against you is almost more important than the crimes themselves. I took it to trial. Of course, I'm here. I lost at trial. Due to Michael and Sam's help, I was able to work on a narrative, worked on character reference letters. I received a 42-month sentence. So I was 11 months below the guideline range. And I went on to serve 13 and a half months of that 42-month sentence due to good time. I received all my good time because I didn't have any problems with disciplinary infractions. I had a few months of halfway house and home confinement time. I had time off for RDAP. And just as anyone who's going into the system now will receive the benefit of, I received First Step Act credit as well.
Go ahead. No, please continue.
Sure. So to get to what initiated this conversation is I eventually made it out. I was itching to get out of prison and made it to the halfway house and immediately called Michael complaining about the halfway house. It is a very different experience than prison. In some instances, it will make you look glowingly upon the prison experience. But, you know, I just used the tools and the tactics and the resources to adapt and learn that new aspect of this whole journey. And I think documenting my experience through my website, I'll post a link to that in the comments in a section here, helped because you never have to stop advocating for yourself, right? Like I've been on this whole journey, but the people at the halfway house don't care. I'm just another inmate. I'm just another number. So what are we all doing to differentiate ourselves, to show, like Michael says, why are you worthy of greater liberty at sooner in the process? I've used my website to try and influence stakeholders, but it's humbling because no one really comes back to you and says, you did this thing and I appreciate you, and now I'm treating you differently. So I found you just have to continue to do the right thing every day, show why you're worthy of leniency, and stay humble and stay patient when dealing with any staff member in the Bureau of Prisons.
And so yeah, the message here with Scott that I really wanted to convey is every time that you're in the challenge, you think this is the last challenge, but there's always going to be more challenges. The first challenge is saying, oh my God, how did I get charged? Why am I in this situation? The next challenge is you may have a defense attorney who's telling you who's really focused maybe on advocating for you. We hope that he is, but there's a possibility that there are things he doesn't know because he's never been in prison. He doesn't know about the administrative side of the journey. He doesn't know about how the BOP responds to certain things. And if you don't know, you are not as strong as you could be. Scott right now transitioned successfully. I mean, I consider that to be an extraordinarily high level of success, to be facing 5 years or 4+ years and get out in 13 months. That's a victory. But even when you get that victory and you transfer to a halfway house, you may find and say, oh, initially I want to get back to prison, but now he's at his home, as you can see, and these are just stages that you have to go through. Sam, all of you, if you're on this call, I suspect that you've all spoken with Sam. And so you probably know his experience where he was facing 60 months. And Sam, when did you get out? How much time did you do?
A little bit over 21.
So 60 months, got out in 21 months. Alec, you were facing how much time when you first learned about this nonsense that you had to go through?
More than 10 years.
And you did how much time actually in prison?
I was actually in prison for 10 months. I was sentenced to 26.
So he did 20, he got sentenced to 26, he got out in 10 months. And so it's important, I think, for everybody that's kind of new in this system to understand that you might be in a difficult situation right now, but there are seeds that you should be sowing that will position you for something better later. And Alec is kind of really interesting to me to give to people right now, because before he even got sentenced, he started sowing seeds for the career that he wanted to build with his future, knowing he's going to have a press release about him. He's going to have some challenges of being a convicted felon and getting back into the job market. But Alec, why don't you tell him a little bit about what you did then and what you're doing, and walk them through that journey about getting out of prison, the type of job you had to get out of the halfway house, and how your early preparations have put you on to launching this new career that you're in right now.
Right. So prior to going to prison on pretrial probation, I worked on a book, and I didn't know necessarily exactly where the book was going to take me. I just knew that it was critical for me to be productive. And I started writing, and of course, your team helped me with that process, but it allowed me to begin to put a plan in place. And I'm a strong believer that you have to plan with the end in mind. And although I had a difficult time. I mean, it's hard to think clearly and work effectively. Things took a lot longer for me than they normally would have to get my work done, but that doesn't really matter. You just have to be working. So I did that, and I went into prison, and I had dreams and aspirations of launching a business when I came out that would where I would utilize the work that I did on my book to launch a sales coaching digital course and consulting business. I had been in sales for more than 25 years. I started off as a sales rep. I was promoted to manager, director, vice president, senior vice president. I've done over $3 billion in sales. So I thought that I had the necessary platform in place to be able to influence others, but my experience of having gotten into trouble, being indicted, having to go to prison and so forth, I felt actually made me different than most people who coach in sales, and unique. And as opposed to allowing those press releases that Michael talked about, which, it was a very high profile case, 60 Minutes, Frontline, HBO, document, it was all everywhere. And as opposed to hiding and allowing all of that negative press to make me want to hide in the sand, hide my head in the sand, I decided, and with help, okay, I'm not taking all the credit here, but ultimately it's my decision. I decided with help to turn those negatives into a positive and ensure that I could share my unique experience along with the success that I had in sales to launch a successful career. And now when I was released from prison after doing 10 months inside, I had to do 9 months in the halfway house. And everybody has a different experience. I thought it was interesting to hear Scott say that he complained about the halfway house. I dreaded the idea that I would have to go to a halfway house. I'm like, oh, that's just another step. And then I had to go to house arrest. Oh, that's just another step. For me, when I went to the halfway house, I thought I died and went to heaven. I got to go to work and I got to have a phone. And after a long days of work, I got to watch movies and TV and communicate and FaceTime with my family. And the food was good. I mean, I thought it was fantastic, quite frankly. So everybody has a different experience. Don't let that scare you. But, the 9 months that I spent in the halfway house, they were insistent that I, not be entrepreneurial, that I work a 9-to-5 job. And I took a job basically, working in a phone room. I worked in a cubicle, I had a couple computer screens in front of my face and a phone. I went from working, on a high-rise building, having the corner office with glass all around me and 1,000 employees underneath me, to working in a phone room, taking orders from a couple of guys that, quite frankly, I had a hard time taking orders from. But, having been through the prison experience and everything along those lines, it is what it is. And I did the best I could. I worked as hard as I possibly could. And then just recently, literally just within the last couple of months, I decided I'm ready to take the next step. I'm no longer on halfway house or house arrest. I'm on supervised release, and my probation officer is in support of me, being a little bit more entrepreneurial in spirit. And I have fully launched my business. I've created a digital course, a sales training coaching course. I do one-on-one consulting for people who want a little bit more than that course. And I'm busy. I'm busy all day. And I have a lot of hope, and I have a lot of excitement towards what my life could be now moving forward. Whereas prior to going to prison, when I was on pretrial, I didn't have hope. All I had was regret, despair, and quite frankly, a significant amount of depression and anxiety. So it is a journey, but it's absolutely something that's doable. Not going to be easy, but could also be extremely gratifying in the end of the day. And it could help. For me, I've been doing podcasts like every week now. I did 2 last week. I enjoy talking about and sharing my experience. And
so Alec, let me just, because we
yeah,
can go on all
interject.
day here, and you can reach. What I wanted to speak about with Alex, I wanted everybody to hear, is that you may be going through a real challenge today. You may be going through a real challenge today. I don't ever want to diminish that, but as somebody who's gone through the entire journey, all the way through, I want you to not only think about the challenges you're facing today. When anybody initially learns that they get in trouble, the first thing they do is they go and hire a lawyer. Typically, they go and hire a lawyer. And if they've never been involved in the criminal justice system before, how do they hire a lawyer? They go on Google, they find the first ad, and they typically hire the first person that they find, or somebody that they don't know. And they pay a lot of money, because the lawyer is going to tell you immediately what you want to hear, what's going to happen. And they pay, but sometimes they don't get all the information, because the lawyer is focused on a very specific task, which is just handling the criminal justice proceeding through sentencing. But this is a lifelong experience for you. And sometimes you don't know that. Sometimes you don't think, like, I guarantee you, when Alex was running head of sales for a multi-billion-dollar company, he never in his life dreamed he would be going back to an entry-level position and answering phones or trying to, nurture leads to get a selling moving furniture. I think that's what you're selling moving equipment, right? You don't know. what can happen. But because he did all of this work before, he's in a different position now that he's coming to the other side of the journey where he can recalibrate and start his life. Sam Mangel's the same thing. Sam Mangel got out of the halfway house. I mean, and he
I didn't
started
go to a halfway house.
Pardon?
I bypassed the halfway house, went right to home confinement.
And it's all because of the preparation that he did very early on in the journey. That's the reason he did 20 months on 60 months. And you may be going through something really difficult right now, but Sam has found he's found his niche in life where he's doing something that he loves doing. We want everybody in this experience on these webinars to have that experience. We don't want anybody to have the experience like a lot of people have when they're dealing with defense attorneys. They're saying later, I wish I would have known something different. I would have done something different. So the more you hear stories like Alex and Scott's and other people that have gone through this, we hope that it will prep you to begin asking questions, maybe the kinds of questions that you wish you would have had answers to long before the government targeted you for a prosecution. The more you learn early, the better off you are going to be to navigate it. And if you need specialized information, certainly the members of our team, Scott and Sam and others that you work with, will be there to help you and guide you. But you also have a duty and a responsibility to learn what can you do. And that's why we offer it all on Prison Professors, not only for people who are out here and have access to the web, but we push it into prisons as well. In fact, this coming week, I will be going to 2 federal prisons, one in Oxford, Wisconsin, and another one in Rochester, Minnesota, and many more federal prisons coming up after that. Why do we do that? Because that's part of our commitment in our advocacy effort, right? To advocate, we have got to reach the people at the highest levels of the Bureau of Prisons and push them to understand why we need changes in the system, why we need more concepts like the First Step Back and earned time credits. People don't understand how those work, and people right now don't, there's a lot of people in prison, they're very frustrated because they don't see it being applied. But if you're on this webinar, it's definitely going to apply to you. It may take another week, another couple of weeks before these computation sheets get updated throughout the Bureau of Prisons. But I will be providing more information next week to our team that they will spread it across to people in our community, because I'm going to be interacting with wardens in 2 different federal prisons. And I'm going to be hearing, how are you applying these earned time credits? When are we going to see those reflected on your computation sheets? If you don't know what I am talking about right now, then it makes a lot of sense for you to be either asking questions about it or to be spending time on our webinar, on our other webinars, so that you could learn about them. Today is really just kind of an open, broad view, but there are so many things for you to learn that we want you to be thinking about them. We want you to be thinking about your career like Alec did right now, even though that may be many, many years down the road. And I would never ask anybody to do anything that I didn't do. This is what I had to do at the very start of my journey so that I'd have a different outcome as somebody who went through prison for a very, very long time. So I say this because I don't get to talk to everybody in our community. My focus is on the institutional side, not on the individual side. But I always want to tell people I completely trust it in our team. And I know that they can be enormously valuable in helping you answer questions or respond to questions that you may have. But you also have a duty to spend time researching, and that's why we publish all the time. You need to know our website, and if you have not watched our interviews with subject matter experts, it's super important for you to do that, so that that's going to help you ask better questions. And we want you to ask good questions. And right now I see that my friend Mark Fitting has a question. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Mark, so we could respond.
Thank you. I was just curious, when Alec was talking, he said he was facing 10 years and he got it reduced to 26 months. So I was just wondering.
Well, before you respond to that, Alec, let me respond. He didn't say he got it reduced. What he said was he got sentenced to 26 years, right? remember what that means, right? That these are important concepts for people that are coming into the system. When somebody gets charged with a crime, the government charges a very specific statute. And that statute has what's called a statutory maximum sentence, that by law, that's the most that they can sentence you. If you have wire fraud or mail fraud, the statutory maximum is 20 years. Okay. So what Alex said is he had that length of sentence, but he did a lot of preparation before he went in, and he was successful in advocating for himself with good counsel. I think he would say, I'm going to ask, he had good counsel. And he got 26 months. Is that right, Alex? He got 26 months. But it's, remember, whatever you get at sentencing, that's not the end of the story. You've still got to be advocating for yourself. So obviously it was awesome that he got 26 months, but what was even better is that on 26 months, he only did 10 months in prison. And you've got to be thinking about this now, because whatever you get sentenced to, you have an ability, a mechanism. It doesn't mean you're going to get it, but you have a mechanism to influence when you can get out, either through your sentencing judge or administratively through the Bureau of Prisons. But if you don't know the reasons behind every decision, you may not take advantage of those, and you may not be in the best position. So that was just my response, Mark, to Alec, is that there's statutory sentences, then there's the sentence, then there are administrative proceedings that your lawyer may not be there to help you with. You have to learn how to do this yourself. Our team, Sam, Scott, anybody else that's on our team will be there to give you, to guide you and to tell you what tools, tactics, and resources you can create to make you a better candidate. Sam will show you what we've done with other people. Scott will tell you what he's done. But you've got to say, okay, this is the crisis of my life, and I've got to navigate my way through it. So the more you learn and the more you understand, the better off you're going to be. And Tammy, I definitely see your hand, but I just want to show everybody before I ask you to unmute yourself. I want to share with everybody, where can you go to get information besides our website? You could also go here to this great resource, which is bop.gov. And you could go here and learn about the various concepts here. Like if you look here, First Step Act, there's an abundance of information. If you look here, list of our facilities, First Step Act is going to tell you all about this law, where you can download it, you could read about it, and you could ask us better questions on how does this help me? I mean, look at that. 11,000 people have been released through these programs. And I can tell you it's going to continue growing, because the Bureau of Prisons is under a very heavy mandate from Congress to fully implement the First Step Act. Every individual, if you're on this webinar, should be learning about this and then asking us questions. Here you have a list of all the facilities. Anybody that hasn't done it already should be choosing. If you have an idea of where you're going to serve your sentence, pick a facility, okay? Pick a facility, go down here to the bottom, and you will see an A&O handbook. Download the A&O handbook, read the A&O handbook, and take some notes on how and why, what questions you should be asking, and bring them to our team. Bring them to Sam, bring them to Scott. I mean, Scott, how available are you to the people when they reach out to you? Walk them through, because everybody knows Sam. Not everybody knows everybody else on the team.
Sure. I mean, I'm on home confinement, so let's be real. Give me a call. I've enjoyed those of you who are on the call that I've talked to. Jason, Mark, Lawrence, you guys are great. In the conversations are therapeutic, I think, for both of us.
So Sam is a resource. Scott's a resource. Justin, of course, is a resource. I'm not always available because I'm in prisons all the time and trying to create and gather more content. But I will always communicate with our team and provide more information. But it's everybody's responsibility to figure out, how do I help myself? We cannot change the past. We can't undo what your lawyer did. We can't undo what the prosecutor or the grand jury did. We can't undo what's happened before. But whatever stage you're in right now, we are big believers that you can help yourself. And that's what we want to help you do. And Tammy, I'd love it if you unmuted yourself and asked your question, because I see your hand is up. Are you there, Tammy?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Yes. I just was released from the Greenville camp. I saw you there.
Oh, I saw you there. That's awesome.
Yeah. I have a question, and I know I've talked to Sam, and I have been with my parole officer has called me. In the camp, we were advised that we would be able to use anything over and above and could earn more FSA credits when we got out.
And you still have a question about that. Is that your question about how those FSA credits will apply to you?
Well, that along with, can you still earn FSA credit? Because
Yes.
you're still considered, okay.
Yes,
That's
you
funny.
can. There's a new policy, and on our
Okay.
website, we've published that policy. Let me see if I can find it, because I want everybody to know, where do I find these resources? So I'm going to share the website right here. And if I go down here to advocacy news, I think it's here. And there's so much content on here. Okay, there's a lot of content on, but I can look down.
I just posted it. I just posted it.
So if I look, yeah, but I can look right here also, policy statement, right? You posted First Step Back policy. I think this is it. Yeah. So if you click that right there under advocacy, there it is. There's the policy. If you download the PDF, I can click that, open link in a new tab. There it is. There's the actual policy. Okay. This is new. Notice that says November the 18th, 2022. That's like 2 weeks ago. Okay. A little more than 2 weeks ago. Now, Tammy, I want you to know, because how long were you in Greenville?
I was in total of 9.5 months on a 33-month sentence.
So congratulations, first of all, that's pretty good. 9.5 months on a 33-month sentence. I always consider that to be a victory. And I know it's 9.5 months that have been taken out of your life. But when I was in prison, on 33 months, a person would typically do about 27 months. Okay. So it's a victory what's happening. But yes, Tammy, that new policy statement, if you read it, you will see a couple of things that earned time credits definitely continue to apply while you're on home confinement and until you finish with the BOP. So you should see, Tammy, your computation sheet change. Yesterday's webinar, I suggested that everybody kind of would give it a week or so to like December the 10th, and then reach out to your case manager at the RRC. You have a case manager at the RRC right now at the residence?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But she's advised me that I cannot earn FSA, as did the PO.
I'm glad that you just said that, because that's something for everybody to understand. You are going to get a lot of bad information throughout this system. And that's one of the reasons that we're really grateful that you're in our community and you have this resource, because I want to give you a perspective that's very different maybe than something that Tammy would have as a person that was exposed to the system itself, the prison system itself, for less than 10 months. If you don't have a lot of experience in the system, you can't really appreciate the magnitude of change that the First Step Act has brought. And that, as somebody who's gone through many different prison reforms, when I went to prison, there used to be parole. So that ended with legislation that passed like a couple of months, that started a couple of months after I came into the system. This is the biggest prison reform legislation since then. And up until the First Step Act, the Bureau of Prisons' entire mantra was to focus on only security of the institution. In no way did they focus on your life as a human being or your prospects for success upon release. All of that has changed now. But although the wardens that I speak with, I mean, Tammy, you saw how Warden Williams embraced me and kind of welcomed me. That would have never happened 5 years ago. To have wardens and high level people allow somebody who did a quarter century in prison to come in and share these stories, that just wouldn't have even been allowed. So these are major movements in the system that are happening because now I have an opportunity to advocate on behalf of people in federal prison. And that's what I do. So I'm very patient in understanding that this system, the law passed, but when the law passed in December of 2018, what's that, 19, 20, 21, that was 4 years ago when it was passed, the Congress, because recognizing it's such a big change, Congress gave the Bureau of Prisons a full year to implement this whole concept of risk assessment tools and pattern scores and these other things. And then it gave more time for them to start developing these concepts called the catalog for productive activities and the Spark 13 and these risk assessments, and then the needs that you have to be assessed. These are major changes. And Tammy, what's happening are people that come in as case managers, they don't have the training yet to even understand how this works. And sadly, it's probably going to take another year for that training to get laid out. But with this policy statement that I just showed you and showed you where to find, and that Sam was so kind to put it in the chat so that you should all read it, it's very clear. When there is a policy, that becomes the way they'll start training in the Bureau of Prisons, and this is going to be automated. So what happened before that? I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again to kind of show you the history of this, because these are things that should give you confidence on things that are changing. So I'm going to go back up here to resources. I'm going to go to advocacy news. I think I wrote something here about this just before that passed. Prison litigation reform, congressional support. No, how to advocate. I wrote, well, let me just tell you, because I don't want to waste your time looking for it, but I'm just going to tell you what happened. Around a week before this policy statement came out, Senator Dick Durbin and Senator Chuck Grassley, two very powerful senators who oversee the Bureau of Prisons, sit on the Judiciary Committee, wrote a letter to the Bureau of Prisons, to the Attorney General, asking the Attorney General, why hasn't the First Step Act been fully implemented? It's been 4 years. People are serving sentences that should be out. They had this ridiculous statement about 18 months that they were finalizing. All of that, all of those preliminary things were leading up to it was because it takes the Bureau of Prisons a long time to come up with a policy. They've got to negotiate with the Bureau of Prisons union, and then they have to implement training. And there's 40,000 people working there who have been trained just the opposite ways for the past multiple decades, ever since the abolition of the parole system. So this is a long rollout, but definitely, Tammy, you will benefit from it because you just got released and you've got a significant amount of time that you still owe to the Bureau of Prisons, but you will be getting a projected release date, I would say within a week. My recommendation is you wait another week to 10 days, and then you ask your residential reentry manager, your case manager, to give you a new computation sheet. I'm going to even write it in here. Ask your case manager for an updated computation sheet. Do that in about 10 days. Because there's 100,000 plus people in prison, and they have to update every single person's computation sheet. When those congressional senators wrote to the Attorney General, they actually gave them until December the 7th. They gave the Attorney General till December the 7th to respond to Congress. Well, that Attorney General, you know that he reached out to the Bureau of Prisons. What's going on? How long is this going to take? So there's pressure coming from high-level people in Congress and in the Department of Justice to force the Bureau of Prisons to accelerate full implementation of the First Step Act. That policy came out 2 days after that letter. So that's one of the reasons that I am very confident that anybody that's going into the Bureau of Prisons is going to benefit from this relatively soon. But I'm also going to say that there are going to be a lot of people like Tammy who may be frustrated because she served time and the First Step Act existed and she didn't see anything happen other than she got out in 9 months or 10 months, which is awesome. But everybody has a responsibility and a duty to start sowing seeds that will let you out earlier and give you a higher level of liberty earlier. But just getting out and just getting a high level of liberty isn't enough. You've got to be like Alec or like Scott or like Sam and thinking about the career you're going to lead on the other side of this, because there are another whole series of complications that follow for people who've gone through this system. And if you are not working with our team, then spend all of your time reading or watching videos or listening to audio, or just reach out to members of our team so that you can get help along the way. So let me continue on with the prepared remarks, and then I'm going to go with this chat. But I do highly recommend that if you have any questions about this system, you use these webinar opportunities to ask those questions. This is the time for us to be interactive and for us to share. That was one of the other subjects that's on my list here, is if you don't understand this system when you get in there, sometimes you expose yourself to problems. And I've got a sample on that on slide 3 of my PowerPoint there, where people that go to prison sometimes if you don't understand, it's not only you, although it's understandable and it's human nature to be thinking about the problems that you have. There are people in prison that are focused on something entirely different. Okay. I'll give you an example of a guy that's a member of our community that went to prison. And when he went to prison, he started revealing that he had cooperated with the government extensively, and that did not serve him well. So I really encourage you, learn about the prison system and kind of position yourself and prepare yourself so you can understand your environment and you can understand what is your goal? What does success look like for you? And make all decisions in accordance with success. So if success is, I want to get out of prison at the soonest possible time, I want to come back to my family, that should guide every one of your decisions in there. And it should also guide the decisions that you're doing right now. If you genuinely want to get out at the soonest possible time, this is the time to be reaching out to either to reach out to members of our team and be asking questions like many successful people in our community have done, by saying, what more can I do? What do I have to do now? Because your lawyer might not be telling you these things. You've got to take responsibility to say, let me understand this system, because there's going to come a time when you will not have a lawyer. There's going to come a time when you have to be your own best advocate. And that's why the rest of our webinars that are part of this Preparing Before You Surrender series are about these very specifics, such as, well, what's the first day of prison going to be like? How do I advocate for myself if I have to use administrative remedy? How do I advocate for myself if I have to file a habeas corpus petition? What tools, tactics, and resources can I develop to influence the case managers that are going to see me and judge me in the months or years ahead? The more you understand about that, the better off you are going to be. And that's why we've got a tremendous amount of resources. But for me to tell you what it's all about is the equivalent of you asking me everything that I learned in 26 years of being in prison. I can't do it nobody can do it in one webinar. This is your journey right now, is about preparing for the best possible outcome, given the challenges that you've already faced. And I know I've got Scott Brown on this webinar right now. And Scott, what status are you in right now?
I am currently on home confinement, which means I report weekly to a halfway house. They control, or I have to get permission for any sort of movement to leave my house. Once a week, I have to go report and have a meeting with my case manager. Today, even though I was just there yesterday, today I got called in for a random UA. So after this call, I get to make an 1.5-hour trip to the halfway house. They micromanage much of your life.
And you've also had some challenges with employment. Could you walk us through what that, and you're a super successful guy previously, and now you're in this situation. What challenges have they given you with employment?
Well, the area that I live in is a very seasonal resorty type area. So when I came out, that was basically the end of the summer. So there weren't a lot of job opportunities around here. I reached out to you guys to see if there was anything available within your company. And through that, we've been able to work through a position in your company, which I'm very grateful for. But the halfway house was telling me that I couldn't be self-employed. I couldn't work from home. I had to be paid as a W-2 employee, not as a contract employee. And these are all things that they told me were in their scope of work, which they are not at liberty to show me. Since then, I found out that most halfway houses' scopes of work are on the internet. And, you know, a lot of times I can't find a policy to back the things that they're telling me, but that's where you have to pick your battles and decide, you know, do I just want to go with what they say, or is this something worth making a stand on?
That's the critical thinking skills, I think, that everybody has to be figuring out. You've got to be thinking about what is success in your life, given where you are right now. I know everybody wishes that somehow they could turn back the clock and never be in this situation. But that's like me saying, I wish I was 6'6". It's not going to happen. We've got to deal with the world that as it exists. As somebody who has a felony background, my job is to figure out what am I going to do, given the reality that I served 26 years in prison. Unlike many of you, I consider myself unemployable. I'll never be able to get a job because I'll always have this baggage. If you Google my name, all pages are about my journey through prison. But the difference between what Scott's experiencing in a halfway house, I had a very different experience because I sowed so many seeds while I was in there that I could overcome all of these challenges. And I don't think I worked with Scott. Did I work with you, Scott, before you went to prison?
I spoke with you, Sam, and Justin before going in.
How long were you in?
21 months.
So 21 months, and you served how long?
Oh, that's how long I actually served.
How long
I was looking at 8 years. I got sentenced to 5 years.
And you got out in 21.
Yes.
So you've got some complications right now, but it's like little victories. It's the complications that you have are better than standing up for count. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So they're better than that, but it's you know, there's a great philosopher. I don't know if any of you have heard him. His name is Mick Jagger, and he sang this song. It says, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need. And that's kind of the philosophy you have to have when you're going through here. I can't always get what I want. I can't undo what somebody did before me. Congratulations to you, Scott, by the way, for being able to facing 8 years and getting 5 and getting out in 21 months. Those are successful victories, but it's ongoing. There's always going to be a need to advocate for yourself. Even when you get out, there's going to be a need. And if you want to learn more about some of those challenges and what you can do or what you should know, I really encourage you, spend time reviewing this information right here that's on our subject matter expert page and watch all of these videos. Because if you don't, am I on the right screen? Oh, I'm not on the right screen. If you look at these videos here, subject matter experts, you're going to hear from the kinds of people that have enormous influence over your liberty. This guy's a former chief U.S. probation officer. This guy's a former director of the Bureau of Prisons. And there's 2 videos with him. This is a federal judge. This is a federal judge. This is the former head of all halfway houses in home confinement in the United States. And what do you learn from this? You learn strategies that you could use. You're going to hear strategies that you should be able to use to increase the level of liberty in your life. So Tammy, it would be very useful for you to listen to that John Gustin interview, because, or Scott, if you haven't listened to it, you should listen to it too, because he wrote those scopes of work that oversee the halfway house. And now he is a full member of our team. So if there's a problem, generally what happens is you would reach out to Sam or to Carol or to Scott and say, hey, I've got this problem. What should I do? They will then reach out to him. He will provide us with, hey, here's the policy that you need to cite. Here's how you should write it. And then we'll pass that information on to you and teach you how to advocate for yourself. That's what's important, right? You wish that you had all this information much earlier in the journey so that you wouldn't have come into the system. However, you have to be thinking just like you had to think about when you were building your career or you were doing something in your life. I've got to learn everything I can about this career so that I can advance myself. Well, right now you're in crisis, and crisis you're in a storm, and you got to navigate your way through that storm and get back to safe harbors, to get back to shore. And the more you get to listen to people like Scott Laney or Alec Berlikoff or Sam Mangal and people who've done it really well and gone on to build their life, the sooner you are going to start restoring confidence and realizing, I don't have to outsource all decisions to my defense attorney. I've got to learn about what seeds I can sow today to advance my prospects for success in the next week, the next month, the next year, the next 5 years, because this will not end when you come in here, but it also doesn't have to derail your life. As somebody who went through a quarter century in prison, I can tell you, you have the power within to sow seeds for a better outcome, but you have to build this strategy. And that's what we genuinely want to help you do. That's why we offer it in every format. But these webinars require engagement. They require you to do what other people do. Raise your hand or just unmute yourself and say, hey, I have a question. That doesn't make sense to me. What can I do now? And then we are going to share with you what you can do now. Because regardless of what the system does, there's always something you can be doing and you should be doing. And in the webinars that are going to follow, because next week I'll be in prison, so my partner, Sam, and Scott will probably be leading the webinar, or maybe Justin will be leading the webinar. But I know that every one of these other webinars, they're topic specific. So you might be learning about how the medical system works. You need to learn about the BOP formulary and what steps that you could take to make sure that you're getting the medical attention that you need. You may be needing to learn, how do you communicate with people while you're in prison? How does the phone system work? The email system work? The mail system work? How do you educate the people in your support network to help you through this very difficult journey? Next week's webinar, I think, is specifically about what happens when you first surrender. What comes? Because if you don't know, you've got this tremendous dark cloud hanging over your head, figuring out, how do I navigate this very unusual world where there is no privacy, where there is nothing, it's just completely different from any place else in America. When it comes to understanding, how much does it cost to live in prison? How does the financial responsibility program work? If you don't know answers to those questions, please educate yourself first by learning what questions you should ask, listen to people who've gone through it, and then start saying, well, what can I do? And the answer for one person might be different for another, because this is a huge bureaucracy and it's a bureaucracy that doesn't always function the way that Congress intended. Our job is to say, I can't change the machine, but I can change my response to the machine and put myself in a different algorithm to get the best possible outcome. I would never ask anybody to do anything that I didn't do. And I would always say, but that doesn't mean I can solve it for you. I can only show you, hey, these are problems that you should anticipate. And these are ways that you put yourself in a position to overcome those problems. And these problems don't end at sentencing. They don't end at the pre-sentence investigation report. As Scott Brown just told us, they don't end when you're on home confinement. They are ongoing. We, because we're a community, we need to say, how do we work toward getting the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time? What seeds can I start sowing today to get a better outcome? And sometimes I use this analogy about, I heard a speaker say one time, he used to ask his members of the audience, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? And the audience would throw out various numbers. And eventually, after nobody had the answer, he'd tell them the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. But the second best time is today. Okay. That was his analogy. I can extend it and just tell each of you, planting seeds to an oak tree is not enough to grow an oak tree, right? You can plant the seed, but you've also got to spread it with feed it with, and nurture it with fertilizer. And everybody knows what fertilizer is. It's just livestock manure, to use a polite term rather than a term that starts with an S and ends with a T. Livestock manure. That's what fertilizer is. The seed has to grow through the manure before it becomes a strong oak tree. Anybody on our webinar has got to position themselves to grow through a lot of manure, because once you're in this system, that's what we got to grow through before we become strong again. But as somebody who's gone through it, I want to help everybody grow strong again. And our commitment is to continue providing this information all the way through the journey, whether you're on these webinars, whether you're in prison, whether it's your family members that are working through it. But we've got to, I can't impress upon anybody enough the importance of preparing yourself and asking questions. And so that's like the conclusion of my prepared remarks for today. What I'd like to do now is invite you all to unmute, raise your hand, I guess, so that we don't, so we don't have multiple people, but feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. If I don't see a question, what I'm going to do is work through these comments and just make sure that everybody's question has been answered. So I'll be keeping my eye on all of you to see if a hand goes up. And I'm just going to read through these chats. So what is the email address to request from core links for incarcerated individuals to receive emails from prison officials and Michael? So here's what's going to happen, just so you know. I can give it to you right now. So actually, I better let my wife and Sam, and just because I don't really know that, but here's what I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Before you surrender, you will get an email from us and a package that will give you all of this information about what to expect when you get there and how to communicate with members of our team, number one. And number two, once you get there, you will get something in the mail. Probably come within 4 days of you going. And this is already automated, where we have another member of our team, his name is Roman, who keeps track of who's going into prison and when they're going into prison. And we send it to you to kind of remind you of some certain things that we've discussed during these webinars. It said, hey, remember now, you're there. There's going to be disappointing things that happen. Sometimes your ice cream is going to be warm. Sometimes somebody near you is going to snore. Sometimes the staff members will not be kind. Sometimes they will not be friendly to your family. Let's just accept that and remember that. And then let's figure out, how do I succeed anyway? So we want to send you that information when you get to prison so that you're reminded of this. But the more you learn before you go, the stronger you are going to be. So Jody, who asked me for the email address, either ask, if you're working with Sam or Scott or somebody, ask them, because I really don't even know, truthfully. But my wife will know, and Sam will know, and Scott will know. So send them an email. or just reach out to Carol at earningfreedomcorp.com. Tasha. Yes, reactions. I think you have to accept the reactions the first time you use it. Oh, thank you, Tasha. That was asking about how to raise a hand. And then there's the section there where I give Carol's email address. Sam, I see that Sam and Scott.
We've been answering them real time, Michael. We're answering them real time, so don't worry about it.
Okay, so there's nothing there. Let me just, is there any questions there that I haven't, that asked for me, or has everything been answered?
As far as I know, everything's been answered. Molly had one question just now. I remember her husband is at the MCC designated to Terminal Island. I answered part of it about Molly. There's no way of knowing when he's going to be transferred. That's a U.S. Marshal thing, and there's just no way to find out. They keep that thing secret. But prior to entering his assigned location, is there anything he can do to prepare for a better transition?
Let me ask you something. First of all, is it Molly?
Yeah,
How long did you say he's been there?
he got there on September 29th.
And he's been there since September 29th?
Right. He's was just told this Tuesday.
That he got designated.
Mhm.
Okay. So I want you to know what the policy is. The policy is that once a person has been designated, it's 30 days. Okay. So they won't hold him in the detention center for longer than 30 days. Okay. Now, if he's been designated at a Terminal Island, he's going to go on a circuit. Fortunately, he's not very far away. I mean, he's very close.
Yeah.
So he very likely will just get on a bus that takes him directly to Terminal Island. There is a possibility. Also, do you know if he'll be going to Victorville first and then to TI? Right now, he's 10 minutes away from TI, but the gossip made is that he might be heading to Victorville.
There's a lot of gossip.
That's accurate gossip. Okay. And the reason for that is because Victorville is a holding center for prisons in this region. So they'll have a detention. They would have it like a detention unit there where everybody goes there, and then they just send a bus and they pick them up from Victorville and send them. So the worst case is he would do 30 days in well, I should say, according to the policy, he would do 30 days maximum at MDC, and then he could potentially do 30 days at Victorville, because they only are supposed to hold you for 30 days in a place when you've been designated. He's got to be on the count at Terminal Island pretty soon. My guess is that he'll be, oh God, it's the holiday season. But he doesn't have to get on the airplane. So it should be, I would say it should be pretty clean, but Sam is right. It's a U.S. Marshals. I don't even think it's U.S. Marshals for him. I think it's actually BOP. I don't think he'll go into the Marshals because it's all local. So he'll probably be a BOP van that takes him to TI, or a bus that takes him to TI, and a BOP van that takes him from Victorville to TI or directly to TI. But we just have to roll this out.
Now my approval finally came in, and like I said, will that transfer to the new facility once he arrives at TI? Will that
no
transfer, or I have to apply?
It probably won't, but you're on his pre-sentence investigation report. And so the policy holds, just so you know, the policy holds that because you're on the PSR as an immediate family member, you can go to Terminal Island. Now, when you go there, I want you to know, sometimes you'll meet an officer that says you're not on the visiting list yet.
Mhm.
Okay. So what you're going to want to do is bring the policy with you, and we have it on our website under the advocacy program. We have a section on there on the visiting form policy that says immediate family members can go, and you bring the policy, and you bring your marriage certificate, and you bring, of course, your identification, and you show that I'm on the pre-sentence investigation report. With all due respect, this is your policy. I'd like to go. If they say, no, you need to be on the visiting form, you have to very politely say, may I speak with what's called the duty officer? Every time there's a duty officer in every prison, which has the authority to let you in, this can happen for you when also you're at if he goes to Victorville, you can visit him there. He will not have a visiting policy at Victorville, but you can do that. So if he gets to Victorville and you can't, and you want to go see him, make sure you reach out to my wife, Carol. She talked her way into a lot of prisons to visit me. when staff would say no. So she will tell you exactly what she did. And then she will provide you with a policy statement as well.
Okay, and then once he arrives, last question, I'm sorry.
Don't be
Once
sorry.
he-
That's what we're here for. Go ahead.
Once he arrives at TI, obviously he wants to enroll in the RDAP program, and he's over 60 as well. Right
What
now
is
we're
his sentence length? You said, did you say was 72 months?
78.
78.
Mhm.
So fortunately, he's going to a low security facility in that regard. That's helpful to him because typically you get into the RDAP program when you are already in accordance with your release date. So like if he was going to a camp, typically the people that are getting into the camps RDAP program are like within 48 months or something like that, 36 months, 40 months of release. But in a low, there's a lot more people with longer sentences. So he can get into it right away, and he wants to get into it right away because he'll get that year off from RDAP, and he can get a year off for earned time credits from participating in programs. What's going to be really important for you, Molly, is to make sure that Molly, right? Is that right?
Right.
You want to make sure that he participates in FRP, in the FRP program. So he pays his financial responsibilities, and you're going to want to make sure and encourage him to avoid disciplinary infractions and participate in every possible program he can. This is very important going forward for him. Okay.
All right.
Are there any other questions that I didn't respond to that Sam or anybody member of our team didn't respond to? Well, then I want to wish everybody a fabulous holiday. And because I may not be, well, I'll be on before Christmas, but I'm in prisons for the next couple of weeks. So I won't be on the next couple of weeks webinars. I have enormous trust and faith in my team, and they're awesome. And I hope that you will leverage them and use them to get through this really difficult life. But I also hope that you will use our resources on the website. If you don't want to read, listen to the iTunes podcast while you're going to find hope, and it's going to help you ask better questions, because I want you to ask questions if you're going through this journey so that you can get through it successfully. I want to thank you all. Oh, I see a question there. Brad, the gentleman that got 60 months that got out in 21 months, how did he do that? Sam is no longer on the call, but is that you, Scott? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I was trying to type quickly because I knew the call was coming to an end. Long story short, I was released under the CARES Act. There were some other factors involved, but the CARES Act is what made the difference. I had some obstacles even in the CARES Act, and I was able to reach out to Sam while I was in prison, and he was able to work with my lawyer to get some things done behind the scenes to remove that obstacle.
Let me ask Brad, would you mind unmuting yourself so that we could give a little more clarity and context to that?
No, not at all.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, how are you?
Go ahead. What you were going to say?
First of all, what you're doing is fantastic, and I thank you very much. I'm sentenced to 60 months. I start serving January 17th, and I've done all the math with good time credit with RDAP, and just was curious in terms of how that calculation came about. I do need to be transferred from Otisville to an RDAP facility at some point, but just am hopeful that it's only 21 months, but didn't know how that math worked.
Let me show
and
you.
Obviously, I've been doing it a lot in terms of the math.
Let me show you. Did you use our calculator?
I not
Okay.
sure.
Let me show you. So you see my screen? Everybody
Yes.
should know about this resource. Okay. Scroll down. When you get to one of these pages where you see the sidebar, right? You don't see the sidebar on the home page. Like if I go to the home page, you don't see the sidebar. Okay. But if I go to any of these other pages on the site, I think you see the sidebar. Okay. There's the sidebar that I'm talking about. Scroll down. Okay. Everybody can see it. Okay. I'm just going to plug my email address in there. You're going to give me the data, right? So is this your first time in the system?
First time.
Okay, great. So I'm going to what do you do for a living?
I was in finance.
Okay, you're in finance, and no history of violence or anything else like that. So I'm just going to assume you're a minimum. Okay. I'm
Yep.
going to go to project release date calculator. There it is. Did you see where that was down there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I want you to know we're updating this weekend, but for now it should be good enough for you for what you're doing. I'm going to just plug my name in there so that I can show you exactly what's going to happen. Michael
Right.
Santos. I'm going to put my email address in there. Did you serve any time in custody?
No,
Okay. So you did, just so you know, because you pleaded guilty, right? Or you have already been in custody
Yeah.
okay. So even if you were in for like an hour and you just got fingerprinted and got your mugshot taken, when that happens, that counts as 1 day. Okay. Oops.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry. This is
Great.
the wrong thing. Original sentence length. How long is your sentence length?
60 months.
So go to 60. Okay, great. And what is your date that you're going to start?
January 17th.
2023. Okay, there we go. You have 1 day of jail credit automatically. They're going to give you that
Right.
when you get there. And you're going to do RDAP. So let's plug that in
Yeah.
there. Now, this is the section here that requires a little bit of guessing because you have to get in there as soon as you get in there, and make sure that you go to these webinars as long as you're here. But I'm going to tell you now, because you're only here for a couple more weeks before you surrender, you've got to know about the survey. And Molly, you make sure that your husband takes the survey as soon as he can. Okay. Because if you don't take the survey, you cannot qualify for what are called earned time credits. So as soon as you get to prison, and they don't make it easy, right? The Bureau of Prisons is not a family friendly, get you out of jail as soon as you can. So you have to know, in order to get earned time credits, you have to take the surveys so that you get what's called a risk assessment done. That's part of the experience. If you don't educate yourself on that, you may not know. And right now there is what's called a grandfather clause that anybody that's in there right now that didn't take the survey, they're going to get these good time credits. But by the time you get there, Brad, that will be over. So you have got to take the survey. Write that down. As soon as you get there, you start asking, hey, when can I take my survey? Okay. And then you get qualified. So then you get how many credits are you going to earn? This is the thing where you could earn up to 12 months off of your sentence based upon the classes that you participate in. So let's say you did 24 months worth of those classes, because you said your sentence is going to be five years. Is that your sentence?
Yes.
Is 5 years, right?
Correct.
So I can just do off the top of my head, because I've got experience in there. I know that on 5 years, you get 15% off. So 60 months, that's about 9 months. That takes you to 51 months. Then you're going to get 12 months off for RDAP. That takes you down to 51 minus 12 is like 41, 39, right? 39.
Right.
Then you're going to get 12 months off for this if you do 24 months. That takes you down 39 minus 12. That takes you down to about 27. Okay. Then you're going to get some time for home confinement. But I'm going to say 24 is successful. I'm going to put 24. Okay. I'm going to put 1. I'll put 1 there. Submit. Now what's going to happen once I hit submit, it comes to this little weekly thing where I kind of tell you, hey, this is just a projection, but now I'm going to pull up my email. See over there. Can you guys still see my screen? You can't see my screen. So I got to open this up, and then so that you can see what you're going to get. So once you fill that application out, you're going to, let me see if I can share this screen now. You're going to get this email automatically, right? And it's going to explain to you. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be updated this weekend because that policy statement that I spoke about earlier, it has changed. But it kind of explains to you, gives you a little bit of information there to remind you, when you were in the 9th grade, you went through civics class, and it kind of gives you a little understanding about the judicial branch of government, the executive branch of government, and the legislative branch. And it reminds you the BOP doesn't always do everything the way it's supposed to. But we can give you some projections. Here are the summary for the projections. I'm just going to go to the bottom line here. Is your release date's probably going to be, based on what I plugged in there, about April the 18th of 2025. Let me think this through. Hold on a second. That's not accurate. This is the problem. This is why I have to change that, because you see number 2, it says 18 months short. Do you see
Yeah.
my screen first of all?
I do. I do.
So you can't use this right now because they've changed the policy since we initially did this program. When we initially did this program, the BOP had a policy that said when you are within 18 months of your release date, your sentence becomes final. Okay. And that was a terrible policy. It's not going to be the case anymore. So I've got to change this, and I got to work with my programmer to remove that faction there. Let me just kind of tell you what it is by just putting up a whiteboard, and we'll just kind of do it together. But I would encourage you to visit that website by the end of the week, because I should have it done by the end of the week. Let me see if I can get a whiteboard. Let's see if I can do this together. Okay. So can I type on here? No, I guess I can. So your sentence is 60 months. I'm not a very good drawer, but I'm going to do the best that I can do text. Here we go. There we go. Sentence length, 60 months. Okay. RDAT. Okay. Good time is going to be minus 15%, which is minus 9 months. Subtotal is going to be 51 months, right? Then you're going to have on there RDAP. You're going to get 12 months off, less 12 months, which takes it from the 51, and that takes you to what? 51 minus 20 is 41,
yeah,
39 months. Okay. We're going to be able to figure this out together. RDAP, then you're going to have, you're also going to get earned time credits. It's called ETC. You're going to get less 12 months. Because if you do 24 months of programming, you're going to get 15 days a month off for every one of those. So you take 12 months off of that. That takes you from 39 to 27 months equals 27 months. Okay. Then you're going to get a minimum of 6 months to do on home confinement for what do you call what's called the aftercare of RDAP. So you're going to very likely go to home confinement after, I would say, 21 to 23 months. That's kind of how it's going to play out. So if you're going in on January 17th, 2023, I would say January of 25, you will be very close to being in your home. And it could be as soon, you could be spending Christmas, or Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate on home you could be home by Thanksgiving of 24, I think. So this is kind of what I would be looking at. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
And let me just tell you, Brad, you've got to learn everything you can about this whole process, because there's a ton of things that can go wrong that can threaten this once you get to prison. Okay. So make sure you are learning, and everybody else learn everything about First Step Act. But here are some very big, broad bullet points. One, do you have a fine or a restitution?
No, I have restitution.
Okay. Participate in FRP program. Okay. We have a specific webinar on FRP, and I can't go into it all right now because that's a long thing, but it's on our website. If you go into our website and type in FRP, you're going to learn about it. And that's very important for you because it's an area that a lot of people screw up on. 2, no disciplinary infractions. Very important to keep your disciplinary infraction easy, clean. And I just want you to know, you might tell me right now, oh, there's no way I'm going to get a disciplinary infraction. Great. I bet you 5 years ago, if I asked you if you'd ever go to federal prison, you'd say there's no way I'm going to federal prison too, right? It's not only what you do, okay? It's what other people do. And you can control what you do. You cannot control what staff do, and you cannot control what everybody else does. So you've got to keep your head in the game all the time and learn this, okay? And the third thing you've got to do is participate in programs, a lot of them, even if they're stupid, right? You're in finance. I'm going to assume you've got a pretty an advanced degree. Is that right? Or you're a well-educated guy. Okay. Yep. Yeah. If they tell you to go take a reading class, take the reading class. If they tell you to learn hey, you need to take a class, Brad, on walking, take the class on walking. Okay. Because they will use that against you if you don't do what they tell you to do. I am really encouraging you, learn as much as you can on our website. Are you a member of our community? Like, do you work with somebody like Brad, or Sam or Larry and that whole team?
Not in your community. I work with a gentleman, Sean Hopwood.
Oh, Sean, he's my old partner. How did you work with Sean? How did you come up with Sean?
A gentleman that got out of prison gave me his name.
What is he doing for your appeal?
No, he has just kind of guided me through the whole sentencing, before sentencing.
Okay. Well, he's not going to give you all this kind of stuff. I don't think. He's your lawyer. Did you hire him as a lawyer?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, look through all of this stuff so that you are doing everything that you can to understand the journey ahead and participate in programs. Sean was very active in passing the First Step Back, by the way. In any event, you're going to be okay, Brad. You're going to get through this. You'll be home and recalibrate your life. How old are you?
I'm 63.
So you're super young. The reason I know this is I'm almost 59 and I know I'm super young. So
Right, exactly.
In any event, I see my hand is up. I'm going to lower my hand. Is there any other questions or anything I didn't answer that I'm supposed to answer? Can you also calculate 24 months, no RDAP, surrender, 223? Mark, let me fix the calculator, but I can do it off the top of my head. 24 months, no RDAP, 24, that's going to be 15% off. That's 2.43, call it 3. That's 21. You're going to participate in programs. You're going to get some 21. I would say it would be successful for you, Mark, to get out 13 to 14 months would be successful. 27. I'm going to get all these kinds of questions. That's why we have the calculator, Tasha. Let me get the calculator fixed so that it's automated, and then you can go in there. It'll be ready by next week. I just got to talk with our programmer to have him fix it. And then once it will be available and you can log into TrueLinks. Oh, thanks, Mark. But let me get the calculator done. But I would tell you 27 months, 24 months, given the way that the Bureau is changing, I would say that, yeah, you're looking at a great outcome would be if there's no RDAP, a great outcome is going to be like 13 months. Could be better with CARES Act if CARES Act is still in existence. If there's no CARES Act, I'd say 13 months to 16, maybe 15, 16, just kind of off the top of my head. And I know I throw these numbers out like they're nothing. Don't let me minimize that. I know it's hard. I just don't, I want to get the calculator fixed because then it'll do it automatically. Ask to unmute. Lawrence, go ahead and unmute yourself. Lawrence, I can't hear you, but I see your hand is up. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Yeah. So Michael, when you do the calculation for earned time credits, is it off the original sentence?
Yes. The earned time credits is off the original sentence. What?
So for the example you just did, it would be off of 24 months.
Yeah, let me respond to Alfred first. Alfred, if you were on the whole webinar, you'll see the policy statement. Yes, you didn't get any before because there used to be that stupid rule about the 18 months. That's no longer in existence. What you've got to do now, Alfred, is ask your case manager to provide you with a new updated computation sheet. But I would recommend that you wait at least a week because they're doing it for more than 100,000 people. But that's what you got to do, Alfred. Ask your case manager for an updated computation sheet. Lawrence, yes, the earned time credits are going to come off the sentence imposed. Okay. So it's a sentence imposed. You get up to 15 days a month of earned time credit, up to 12 months off of your sentence.
And so that example you gave, 24 months, that didn't include her good time?
No, the example that I gave was a person told me he had a 60-month sentence.
No, the one just now, 24 months that you went through.
The 24-month sentence, good time is going to be about 3 months, right? It's 15% of 24. So on my top basic math, 24, 10% is 2.4. Half of that is 1.2. So call it about 3 months. That takes you to 21 months, right? You with me on that?
Yep.
Then he's got to take the survey and start getting the earn time credits. So say on 21 months, maybe let's just say he does 10 months of earn time credits. If they do 10 months of earn time credits, that gives them 5 months off the sentence. So 21 minus 5, call that drops you down to about 16, right? And then you're going to get a little bit of home confinement time as well. So yeah, 13 to 16 off the top of my head, that would be successful in my view.
And why can they only do 10 months of earn time credit? Why wouldn't they be able to do?
They can. I'm just kind of being kind of conservative.
Okay. They can do more.
Let's say that they should get it all the way until they finish the BOP, but we're not talking about that. If they transition from BOP to home confinement, they're still going to get earn time credits, but they're already home. Got it? Okay. So they're already home. I'm just talking about how long are you going to be in a secure institution?
Okay.
So if you're in a secure institutions for say 16 months, let's call it 14 months then. That's going to give you 7 months off. If you do 7 months. So now we're at 21 minus 7. That's why I'm kind of giving you a range, right? It's going to be 12 to 15 months, somewhere in there. But a lot of this stuff is magic math. It's about self-advocacy when you get there. You've got to have a good release plan. You got to have all these things in place, which is why I really encourage people participate in the webinars and learn about all these kinds of things so that we have a whole webinar on the release plan, for example. Really encourage you to pay attention to that.
Yep.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I saw you sent me an email this morning. You have Carol's correct email address. I'm sure she got it. I don't know why.
Yeah, it finally got to her.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
You guys have a fabulous weekend. And next week, our team will be on there. And thanks so much for being a part of our community. Bye.
Thank you.